So today, would you believe that we have 109 slides? Or no, more than that actually. So today we'll be covering macro photography. Anyone have an idea what macro photography is?
Already told you that. So it's like using a microscope, but not.
So before we start, I do want to, and I'm going to say in this video, we are implementing a point system for participation. So you guys are going to get an advantage because you guys were here. Okay? So that's one thing. Why do you think we're having a point system? It's not for the obvious reasons like, oh, I want you to reinforce the subject and stuff like that. I do want you guys to do that. At the end of the day, you guys are going to do that. But the reason why I bring it up is because maybe, depending on how things go, whoever has the most points might get something special. Could be a gift card, could be a camera. I haven't made up my mind yet, you know? And the whole reason I even say camera is because if you start participating more, knowing the answers more, you're going to get a point. That shows me that you are not only paying attention, but remembering what I'm talking about. You're watching the videos, you're applying it at home, you know? So if you get the most points, you should get a reward for that. So, M, K, we'll add the other people later. So, what do we think macro photography is? No guesses? Nothing at all?
I already told you.
I know, you can ask, you can say it again.
It's like using a microscope, but it's not really used for science. It's for photos.
I'll give you half a point for that. Because that isn't completely true. You get half. So, what is micro photography? We already reviewed your photos. I'm sorry, I keep on forgetting to change that. So, what is macro photography? Macro photography is the art of capturing small subjects at very close ranges. Macro photography aims to create a larger-than-life look and feel. Macro photography also reveals textures, patterns, and details that are normally invisible to the naked eye. So you said some stuff was right, but you left out some other stuff, like the larger-than-life aspect. Because with a microscope, you're looking down at like a pita dish. Well, with this is more creative, you know. We're aiming our subjects different ways. Does that make sense? So, what to aim? Oh, that doesn't. Oh, so what? Why did that mess up my brain so much? Okay.
Did you even get enough sleep last night?
I did not.
Why not?
School, work, a lot of things. What do you call it? So, what do we want to aim for in macro photography, and why is it important when we're trying to focus on a specific aspect? So, common examples include insects, plants, water droplets, jewelry, fabrics, eyes, or even day-to-day objects like buttons or coins. Oh, I guess that's what I meant. I meant like the subjects that we aim for in macro photography. Because I could take a photo of Kenji here, and it wouldn't technically be considered macro photography. Why?
Because it's just a normal photo, and plus...
Yes, good job. You get... I'll give you the full thing, so you have 2 points. Yes, it's just a normal photo, but then if I come up closer to you, what's the difference there? I mean, I kind of just said it. I also just said it in the last slide as well.
Reveals more?
Reveals more, and what else? Larger than
Life?
larger than life. Wait, I added Kenji's points to
It's okay, leave it there.
Okay, it's 2-1 right now. So yeah, that's the difference. Because if I were to just take a photo of you, it's not the same as I go really close. So, question time. What details can you see here that you wouldn't normally notice in real life? Let's take a look. My phone's still recording. Tell me something.
In the first photo, we can see more of the I don't know what they're called, like,
Leaves.
The leaves?
but like we can see in more in detail, like the texture of it, kind of.
Okay.
In the third photo, there is more detail to like the brownie, like all
Okay.
the
What can you spot in the brownie?
they're kind of like nuts or something. I don't.
Okay. Nuts. What else?
Cream.
Cream. Yes. What about here?
In the fourth photo, you can see like a tiny little figure in like a. How do you say it again?
Say what?
You can see like a tiny little toy figure in a background, like a tiny toy background.
Okay.
That's why there's a lot of. That's why it looks a little different.
Okay. Anything else?
There's also like few details like the legs are kind of like springs.
Okay. You're describing it. Mia, anything else to add? No? Okay. You both get 1 point. This will be a big point thingy. So, with these here, actually, these are all taken by me, by the way. A little self-promotion. This is actually my friend's metalworking business, so he actually built this. Shameless plug-in for my friend. What do you call it? So there's multiple ways to use macro photography. And not everything is super close, but not everything is super far, like a regular photo. Like Mia said, in this photo here, because we're super close, and you can tell that we're super close, and we isolate our subject by...
Macro photography.
Nope.
Aperture?
Yes, what about the aperture? What's going on?
It makes it blurry in the background, so it isolates
Yes.
the one.
Isolated here, isolated here, isolated here, isolated here. The isolation plays different roles. Most of the time it is to enhance the texture of the leaf. So we have the leaf here. This is actually taken on a 12-year-old camera. So that's just the power of editing, which we will get into next week. That's called foreshadowing. We have the leaf. It has this texture here. What about this? What are we highlighting here?
It looks like a pie with a little bit of sauce on it.
Okay. This is actually... Is anyone ever gone to Angry Chicks?
No.
This is like this food truck's equivalent of their Angry Mac Bowl, which is awesome. I love the Angry Mac Bowl. We're highlighting here. So I highlight the texture, the vibrancy, and the texture of the leaf or flower, whatever that is. Here we're highlighting the texture of the chicken. You guys can actually come up closer if you want, because I know it's hard to see back there. I know. So this is macro photography. You're gonna have to come closer. Don't fall. So you see?
Oh, I see it now.
You see the texture here?
Oh, yeah.
The texture here. How does macro photography enhance the texture here? What kind of feeling does it give you?
Making me hungry.
Exactly. What about here?
Same thing. Making me hungry.
Okay.
And more
I
dessert.
could see more of the
You see the
walnuts
brownie? It feels a little bit more vibrant, almost like full of nutrients or sugar. Actually, Miss Harris actually makes these. You guys don't know, Miss Harris bakes, and she is a phenomenal baker. I kid you not, should own her business. And then this one here, the reason why I took, if you guys want, you just sit closer right here. So you guys don't have to stand all the time.
Let's bring our cameras and other stuff.
So with this one here, my buddy's business makes these metal creations, right? So he makes these metal creations, and instead of doing just a standard product shoot, almost like a portrait kind of style shoot, where everything's very bland, very corporate-ish, we wanted to add some character into this photo shoot. So what we did here actually, so these are two gunslingers. This one has a pistol. This one has a shotgun. Things like Luke and Clyde or whatever you call them. Because they're cowboys. We wanted to kind of lean into that cowboy aesthetic, as if they're in a duel. So the whole purpose of every photo was to make it feel it was in its own little world. It is not a photo, you're peering into their own little world. And it's all the things around them. So this kind of looks like not a Western, more like something you would see in the mountains. Maybe they're fighting off the mountains, or it's like, you kind of let the person, you give enough information for the person to see the image, and you let their imagination run wild and understand the image. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, we just did this. This is actually at Woodward Park, if you don't believe me.
How big are these?
How big are they? They are about...
Are they about like this big or this small?
They are about this height.
Okay, those are pretty big.
Yes.
It's almost the same size as this plant.
Yeah, about the same size of the plant. So they're not like super, super tiny like this little brownie here, but they're big. But just because they're big doesn't mean that we can't do something with them. Any questions? Does everyone understand what we talked about?
Yes.
Yes. You both get a point. So, let's talk about tools and equipment when it comes to macro photography. So when it comes to macro photography, we want to use macro lenses. That's for both DSLR. Anyone remember what DSLR stands for?
DSLRs.
Digital single lens reflector. So that means, kind of like your camera Canon G, it has a sensor, but there's a mirror in front of it as well.
Okay.
Okay. So with macro lenses are true macro lenses have a 1-to-1 reproduction ratio, meaning that the subject appears life size on the sensor. What that's essentially saying is that there are some lenses that are purely dedicated to macro photography. Their sole purpose is to have that larger than life feel. So the reason why you want a dedicated lens is because those dedicated lenses, they will have a very good near focus limit on them. So remember how we talked about aperture? In aperture we have this range, right, of where we can put in a focus. And then if I make my aperture bigger, the range gets smaller, and if I lower it down, the range gets wider. And when we pull our focus, we are moving that range. However, our focus has a limit. While it can focus to infinity over here and capture everything that it sees, it cannot back focus to whatever's in front of it. So like I could put this like, let's say I had a camera here, I could put it like right here and it wouldn't focus because the lens can't focus to that point, which means I might have to move it back here or move my camera back. Does that make sense? So that's why we have dedicated macro lenses. However, macro lenses are expensive. So here are some budget-friendly options. You have close-up filters. They screw into a regular lens to allow for closer focusing. You have extension tubes. So this is, I didn't put a filter on it, dang it. I put them twice, that's why. Extension tubes, which increase the lens to sensor distance, reducing the minimum focus distance. And then you have clip-on smartphone macro lenses. So this is the extension tube. This is the macro lens. This is technically a probe lens. So probe lenses are a little bit different from macro lenses. Macro lenses are going to be just like your regular lens. It's going to look like it. A probe lens is dedicated with this long snout to get really close to subjects. Think about all like the food commercials that you see. You know, the very big, the hamburger, whatever, looks very appetizing. Most of the time they're using this kind of lens because it gives it that what?
Life. Wait.
You're close.
Bigger than life. Feeling something like that.
Larger than life.
There you go. Sorry.
It's okay. Now you guys are tied.
That
All right.
first image looks like it's gonna shoot like a shotgun.
Yeah, people kind of refer to like a turret almost. Kind of gives that turret kind of feel. So this is the probe lens. And that's for macro photography, mostly used for video, but you could use it for photo as well. Then you have, this is the little, what's it called?
Oh, sorry.
Clip-on smartphone macro lens. So you can just clip it onto your smartphone like that. You have these extension tubes. Now, extension tubes, so you know how there's glass elements in your lens, and the glass bends in order to point to your sensor. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This essentially moves your lens forward and farther away from the sensor. So by doing that, if my minimum was here and I couldn't do it, with that extension tube, you're essentially moving the lens, you're moving the plane of focus, allowing it to focus closer. Does that make sense? So you're essentially creating distance here to create more distance to focus in front of you, because you're moving that lens element. And then finally, you have the reverse lens technique. Essentially what that does is you flip a regular lens around. And if you don't understand what that is, we're going to watch a very cool video about it. So, question. Look at these images here. Which piece of equipment do you think would be the most effective when it comes to macro photography?
I'm gonna say the first one.
This one?
Yes.
Why?
Because the way it's like, trying to take a photo of something small, it extended its what was that called? Micro lens.
Mm-hmm.
So it can take a picture of something small and make it a bigger life.
Okay. I guess what you're kind of saying there is it's dedicated to that type of photography.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay. Anything else? Mia? Nothing? Okay. Kenji takes the lead. 5-4. Okay. So, also what you might need is a tripod to help stabilizing small movements. Why would you need a tripod? Other than what I just said. Why would small movements be a problem?
Can affect the photos.
How?
Make it blurry.
Blurry. Okay.
Yeah.
It can affect it because let's say I'm taking a photo at night and I lower down my shutter speed. What happens then?
Any small movement will make it
Brighter.
Yes. Good job. Now you guys are tied. She's like, take that. So,
Five.
and then finally, using additional light sources like a small LED light or natural window light for sharp, well-lit images. This is actually very important when we're using the, what do you call it? Using the probe lens, because the probe lens, because it's so small, it can't open up as wide. So it needs more and more light because it has such a small snout. Does that make sense? So we're gonna watch this video right here.
Filter. This is a 28mm lens. What happens when I join these two together?
This is about
we
the
create a
flipping the lens
Frankenstein
thing we talked
macro
about, okay?
photography setup that's cheap and effective. In this video, I will talk about reverse lens macro photography, why you want to do it, and is it worth it. So let's get into it. Reverse lens filters are a great way to turn your regular lens, like a 50mm or a 28mm, into a simple macro photo setup. Now there's three reasons why you may want to do reverse lens macro photography. The first one is cost. It's extremely affordable to do this. Compared to a dedicated macro lens, it's kind of a no-brainer. A reverse lens filter will set you back anything
Can you
from
guys hear it?
15 to 30 bucks. The second reason is if you already have a lens capable to be reversed, such as this 28mm. Anything from 28mm to 50mm will allow you to do this and give you decent results. And three, the magnification. When using a wide-angle lens like this 28mm lens, when flipped, can give me some crazy magnification. This 28mm lens gives me a 2 or 3 times magnification. This is worked out by the distance of the camera sensor to your subject divided by the focal length of the lens. So in this case, it is 7.5 centimeters or 75 millimeters divided by 28mm. So that gives me 2.6, or rounding up, 3 times magnification. Now the gear I use is a Nikon branded reverse ring, which is about $35 US. This is a 52mm lens filter, which fits the 52mm filter thread of the 28mm lens. Now this lens I bought over 10 years ago for cheap off eBay. It's a vintage 28mm f3.5 lens made in the 1970s. It's an okay lens, not that sharp in the corners, and it has a couple of marks on the front element. But seeing that it is a bit bashed around, I thought it would be perfect for being reversed. So I'm not that precious with it, considering I will be exposing the rear element to the elements. So all you need to do is attach the filter to the front like so, and since I'm using a Nikon Z8, which is a Z-mount camera, and the 28mm is an F-mount lens, I need an adapter. So this is the Nikon FTZ adapter. It looks like an extension tube, but it's just a way for me to connect the F-mount lenses to my Z-mount cameras.
So essentially what he's
So
saying
this
there
lens
is
setup
because
cost me around
cameras have their own kind of
$180.
mount,
Compared
to
to
keep you
a
in the lens
dedicated
line,
macro lens,
he's
that
using
ranges
an
from
adapter
$600 to
to
$1,000
combine
up.
to use different
It's kind of a
lenses for the
bargain.
camera.
But that's all well
Makes
and
sense.
good, but how does it perform as a macro photography option? Let's go out in the field, let's have a go. All of these photos were taken using my standard macro settings of f11, a shutter speed of 200 and an ISO of 200.
So by using that rear focus element, he's able to get that close of shots. See how close he is?
These insects were really hard to shoot as they were about the size of a grain of rice. This lavender plant was really hard to light properly with this lens setup, so it made for some darker images than I intended. I like to shoot abstract images of weeds, but even with the close working distance and minimal light, it's still made for some nice images. As it is still winter here, insects are few and far between, but there are a few spiders still, and the occasional fruit fly. So there you go, reverse lens macro photography, a cheap setup that can give you some pretty great results. Now, would I use this over a dedicated macro lens? Probably not, but I love my macro lenses as they are designed specifically for macro photography. You can't beat that corner-to-corner sharpness of a macro lens. But this is a reverse lens filter. This is a 28mm lens.
Let's see if I can. The images were so small.
So, question time. After watching the video, tell me some of the strengths and weaknesses of using this kind of macro photography setup. Da, da, da.
When you get, I think,
I think after adjusting the shutter speed and ISO and the aperture, you can get like a little bit smaller images, like the bugs.
Yes, that's true, but you can do that with the other regular lens. So why did he reverse his lens?
So you can get a little bit more closer look at the
Okay.
subject.
Okay. Keep on thinking about that. That's like half a point worth. Mia? You gonna steal? No? So, one of the strengths that he talked about, which you did point out, is that he's able to get very close to the subject. Okay? But one of the weaknesses is that the rear element was exposed, and because of that, it's exposed, and you don't want to expose that part, because if you saw right there, actually this is a manual lens, but let's say you did this to like one of your like regular photography lenses, you have contact points there. That's gonna mess up the autofocus system, you know. Also, rear element is super important because it's closer to your sensor. So what if like it gets dirty and you don't clean it properly, and then it ends up hitting your sensor. Your sensor's very sensitive. So, that's one of the drawbacks as well. You get half a point. I have a point right here, so you get another half. So it's 5.5 to 5.
This is a reverse lens filter.
So, let's talk about the best camera settings for macro photography. You have your aperture. You want to use a narrow aperture of f8 to f16 to increase the depth of field, since macro photos tend to have a very shallow focus range. Note, going too narrow, like f22, which is what? F22 is what?
F22 is high, and plus it might reduce the sharpness of your.
Okay, it is technically low. F22 is what? Deep.
Focus.
Deep focus.
Deep focus. She got it first, but she gets half. Okay. So, if you do too much, it's going to reduce the sharpness due to diffraction. Hello. So, we also have our shutter speed. A fast shutter speed, about 1/100 or faster, prevents motion blur, especially when shooting handheld. In the video, the guy, what shutter speed was he using? In amount?
200.
That's correct. Good job.
Same as the ISO, 200.
Yep. So, that prevents motion blur, especially when it comes to these little critters here, because they move fast. Especially these ones. I'm not sure how they got these ones. That would be pretty hard to do, considering how bugs they fly around and stuff. So also, if on a tripod, you can use a slower shutter speed. That's how we talked about that earlier. So, take a look at these images, and after reviewing them, how do you think the camera settings I suggested here complement the image? How do they add to it? You got nothing?
Bugs are creeping me out. Sorry.
Oh, you're afraid of bugs?
Yes.
You're not gonna like this lesson
Oh,
then.
dang it.
Well, I am kind of afraid of one bug. Bees.
Bees?
Because look at the face. It kind of creeps me out.
That is a
And so does a
wasp, I
spider.
believe. Yeah, I don't like spiders. But it's just an image. Can't hurt you.
It got a lot of.
One time I actually saw a spider next to me when I was when I went with my mom somewhere, and it creeped me out. I got scared.
I still don't like spiders. So, how do these settings complement the image?
Let's try to look away from the bugs and think. God.
They're really. I don't know how to explain it.
So, remember about the motion blur? Where's the motion blur? The shutter speed gives you the motion blur.
The shutter speed might be 200 or something.
Yep, we know the amount, but how does that add to the image?
It'll make a deep focus on the image, like
It won't do a deep focus. It will actually make sure there's less motion blur, so we get these moments like this. This guy's gonna move a lot. Keeps it like in that frame, in that moment of time. Okay. Also, it's fast moving subject. You want to catch it when you can.
Are these real photos? Like, did someone?
They
actually
are
take
real
them?
photos. I don't know if that one's a real one. I feel like this one's AI, but I can't tell. It's hard
It
to tell.
doesn't look.
I kind
real,
of see.
but-
I kind of see.
The middle part of the flower looks almost like an eye, kinda.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, but I do know this one and maybe that one
So cancel out.
and this one here.
So cancel out the second because it's AI.
Anybody else?
Now it's just 1, 2,
Nope.
and 3.
No one gets points. So, you also want your ISO to be low, about 1 to 400, unless you're in low light. Then you might want to crank it up a little bit. But in order to get these type of, numbers for your ISO, you will have to use external lighting or just be in a bright lit scenario. So, for manual focus, autofocus can sometimes struggle with tiny objects. Switching to manual focus gives you more control. That's why you saw him use a vintage lens from the
1990s or 70s?
Close.
1960s?
1980s.
Oh, no, I was
So
in between.
So, here's a practice tip. You want to move the camera slightly forward and back rather than adjusting the focus ring. It's faster and often more accurate in macro photography. I've actually done this, and this does help mostly because you reach your limit on your focus, how close you can focus, and so trying to then back up and kind of like refocus is going to take a long time. So that's why you kind of just move back like that, you know. So we answer that question. And then when it comes to filling a frame, you want to get close enough.
Nothing.
You want to get close enough so the subject fills most of all the image. Don't leave distracting empty space. Most of the time. What would be the exception?
Negative space.
Negative space, which we talked about in which lesson?
Episode. Sorry. Lesson 3.
Kind of like episodes.
Lesson 3.
Lesson 3. That's correct. Good job.
I believe in you, Mia.
Just wait till Maud comes back. Alright, so you also have your background control. A clean image like a solid color or a blurred background keeps the focus on the subject. Using paper, leaves, or cloths for simple DIY backgrounds. So what they're saying here is that sometimes what you can do, and I've seen people do this before, especially with like product photography. So there's a weird world where you have product photography and macro photography interchange when they're trying to like highlight a specific feature of like a car or something like that. But let's say I'm a photographer and I'm, taking photos for Rolex, or let's say a ring company. So what they'll do is that they will, you know how you have your external flash? They'll essentially create a cone almost. I think technically, is it a flash box? I forgot what it's called. And essentially, in this cone or whatever it is, it's going to be just white paper, okay? You put your thing in there. There's a little element for your lens to go through. And so when you take it, the light goes and it hits and bounces around. So because it's so enclosed, it's going to keep on bouncing around and it's become brighter overall. And so that's how you can use a limited flash setup to get kind of like this corporate kind of white, this corporate kind of bright setup without any shadows. Because a lot of corporates like to do that. No shadows, everything's very flawless. And then you could buy macro photography, as let's say I'm a watch or a ring, highlighting the little, let's say it's a 20 karat gold watch, whatever. Maybe it has some diamonds into it, so we're kind of featuring those as well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then finally, negative space. In some cases, leaving intentional space can make the subject stand out more and feel less cramped. So, question. How do the following images use the composition techniques that we talked about?
Let's cancel out the other one because that one looks like an AI too. The flower.
The flower, that one actually I wouldn't say is AI.
How? Look at it.
So, the reason why it wouldn't be AI is because those lens flares in the background, and also they probably backlit it a little bit to kind of get that glowing look.
That kind of looks like a bird. Kind of.
Which one?
The glowing. Next
Yeah,
to
it
the
kind of looks like a bird. So, tell me, how do the composition techniques that we talk about, how are they demonstrated in these photos?
The picture of the snail uses the background control. Like it's very.
It's minimal,
Yeah.
but there's still some texture with the water, especially at the light splitting with it. Okay, good observation. That's a point.
Smells disgusting.
Oh, really? What
Yes.
else? What else do you see here?
Would the picture of the strawberry be negative space?
I guess I'll have to give you that one just because. Well, honestly, when I think of. So the thing about negative space is that a lot of times with negative space, you're going to be. It's going to be partnered with something with the rule of thirds. So actually, when I made this presentation, this photo was supposed to be the negative space one, because if we draw the line, it's framed from the lower third. This one, however, our subject's on the center almost, and yes, there's not a lot of detail on the background, but doesn't necessarily mean that it's negative space.
So
but it kind of I could see how it is.
Is it like fill the frame? Fill the frame?
No, fill the frame. Which one do you think is fill the frame?
I think this the answer.
Third one? That one?
I mean third.
Yep,
sorry.
that's correct. 2 points. You can turn up. Okay, and G, she's gaining on you.
So if you didn't consider the strawberry one negative space, would that one be
The ant?
the negative space? But what would the strawberry one be considered? In?
Strawberry one would be considered. Oh, we have third English perspective. Forgot. Let me go over this. You have rule of thirds. Actually, never mind. You're right. It's because we didn't get to this slide.
Really?
So this would be negative.
Really, Mr. David?
I'm okay to admit when I'm wrong. Yes. This is technically, yes, I can say this is negative, and yes, there is negative space being used here. However, it is mainly framed on the bottom third here. The subject is. Sure, they balance it out with this part here, but it's mainly your subject on the bottom third. So this one, I can see negative space. But like I said, photography, there's a lot of perspective, so that's what makes it tricky.
You forgot another angle. Oh.
Yes, angle of perspective. Shoot from the side, above, or underneath to highlight textures and symmetry. So, anything else? Nope. 2 points. You guys are tied.
Again.
Again. So, here's some common challenges for macro photography. I'm gonna tell you the challenge, and I want you guys to try to figure out. It's a big points opportunity here. Try to figure out how you would solve it, and you can use these photos here as hints to figure out what you need to do. So, let's say my challenge is that I have a very shallow depth of field, and I'm losing focus. What can I do?
Increase the aperture.
Increase the aperture. Good job. That's one. Okay, I have camera shake. What can I do?
Tripod.
That's another one. Good job. Oh, yeah. Doop, doop. So yeah, use a narrow aperture f8 or higher to steady the camera and focus precisely. You can use a tripod or rest your camera on a surface. You could use a timer or remote shutter to prevent movement. Not movement, more for just remote shooting. Alrighty. I have lighting issues. What do I do?
What's the word? They have a name, right?
The
back.
The lights, but they have.
You can call them lights. It's
Okay,
fine.
the lights.
They're gonna like.
What am I doing with my lights?
Or you're using more of the light, like but what are they called?
I'm adding light into
Adding
my
light.
into my scene because it's too dark. And if I crank up my sensitivity, then it's gonna look grainy. So I'll give you half a point for that. Okay.
Focus.
And then finally, focusing struggles. What can I do? We talked about it.
Switch the camera to AF to MF.
Okay, good. What else? That's half a point. You're missing 1 point.
Focus?
Mm-hmm. What about the focus?
Or
Other... What do you do? What do you do with that?
scoot back.
Okay.
But instead of doing, I forgot.
You're super close. You're super close. Keep thinking.
You,
You don't know? Okay, I'll give you half a point. So now you have 3.5. So, you're so close. So, you can use a lamp, LED panel, or bounce natural light with a white paper. Avoid your own shadow falling onto the subject. That's when it comes to lighting issues. And then for focusing struggles, you can use manual focus, or you can move your body or the camera slightly instead of adjusting the focus ring constantly. Okay. Finally, let's do a review. So, in summary, macro photography reveals details we often miss and helps you improve your technical precision. You don't need expensive gear, as we saw with the rear lens element. You can use your creativity and patience in order to enhance your subject and get around that issue. And finally, you can use narrow apertures, clean compositions, and control lighting to get sharper results. So what will you capture next? And our activity for today, what time is it? Cool, we got a full 30 minutes to do our activity. So, our activity today is that you're going to be going around campus, and I want you to capture the minute details, the small details.